Hello. Today I thought I'd read to you a bit of Damion by Hermann Hesse. You might know that a few of my Tokyo Ghoul videos I talked quite a bit about Hermann Hesse and his book Damion. If you're a Tokyo Ghoul fan, you would know that Ishida has been referencing Damion for a really long time since the first part of Tokyo Ghoul. Recently I feel like he's been twisting the meaning of Damion a little bit. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing or anything because it's up to the person's interpretation. I just thought that since Damion is one of my favorite books, I would rather people read it themselves and make up their own mind instead of following someone else's interpretation of it. So I just hurt myself. Anyways, you don't have to be a fan of Tokyo Ghoul or anything in order to read Damion. I actually recommend this book for like everybody in this world to read it because it's really philosophical and also very enlightening in certain ways. It will make you look at the world with a different perspective. But anyways, I'm thinking I would only read like the prologue and some of the first chapter. I'm sure that this book is on the public domain, so you can read it for free, I think. I'm not sure because I've got my own copy. Because Hermann Hesse is a German writer. The English translations I will be reading from is by Damion Searls, which is kind of funny because the book is called Damion and the translator is called Damion as well. Anyways, at first, I found this translation kind of a bit jarring and, how do you say it? Jarring and coarse, but the more I read it, the more I find like, oh, this is a really good translation. Yeah, don't let like the first few sentences get in your way of reading this book. The summary of this book is basically about a boy called Emil Sinclair who always felt like he has to be good like all the time and stuff. And he meets a friend called Damion, and it's about how this Damion like changes his life. And according to the summary of the back, it's about Emil Sinclair is a quiet boy drawn into a forbidden yet seductive realm of petty crime and defiance. His guide is a precocious, mysterious classmate, Max Damion, who provokes in Emil a search for self-discovery and spiritual fulfillment. Well, anyways, let's start, I guess. All I wanted to do was try to live the life that was inside me, trying to get out. Why was that so hard? To tell my story, I have to start very far back. In fact, if I could, I would have to go back much farther, to the very first years of my childhood, or even farther back, into the distant reaches of my origins. When writers write novels, they tend to act as though they were God, who can see and understand anything and everything about a person's story, and they present that story as though God himself were telling it, without all the veils of disguise that were the fundamental nature of life. I cannot do that any more than these writers can. But my story is more important to me than some writer's story is to him, because it is my own, and it is the story of a human being, not an imagined, possible ideal, or in some other way, non-existent person, but a real, unique, living, breathing one. Now we know much less today than ever before about what that is, a real living person. And as a result, people, each of them a precious, unique creation of nature, are being shot dead in enormous numbers. If each one of us were no more than a single human being, if the world really could completely be rid of us with a single bullet, then there would be no sense in telling stories anymore. But every person is more than himself. He is also the unique, entirely particular, and in every case meaningful and remarkable point of intersection where the phenomena of the world overlap, only once and never again in just this way. That is why everyone's story is important, eternal and godlike. Why everyone, as long as and in whatever fashion he lives and fulfills the will of nature, is wonderful and worthy of all our attention. Everyone is the spirit made flesh. In everyone, creation takes form and suffers. In everyone, a Redeemer dies on the cross. Few know what a person is these days, but many feel it and can die more easily, the way I will die more easily once I have written out this story to the end. I cannot claim to possess any knowledge. I was a seeker, and I still am. But I no longer look to the stars or seek in books. I have started to hear the lessons roared and murmured by the blood in my body. My story is not a happy one, not pleasing or harmonious like something invented. It reeks of meaninglessness and confusion, of insanity and dream, like the life of anyone who no longer wants to lie to himself. Everyone's life is a way into himself, or the attempt at a way, the hint of a path. No one is utterly and completely himself. Everyone strives to become himself, however he can, this one dully, that one more brightly. We all carry traces of our birth with us to the end, the slime and eggshell of a primeval past. Some of us never become human, but stay a frog, a lizard, an ant. Some are human from the waist up and fish from the waist down. But everyone is a stab at humanity, a roll of nature's dice. We all share a common origin, our mothers. We all come out of the same gaping maw, but every one of us struggles and attempt a throw from the depths to reach our own individual goal. We can understand each other, but each of us can truly grasp and interpret only himself. Chapter 1. Two Worlds. I will begin my story with something that happened to me when I was 10 years old and going to the Latin school in our small town. All sorts of sights and smells come back to me, rise up from within me to touch me with an ache and a blissful shudder. Dark streets and bright streets, houses and towers, clocks striking the hour, people's faces, rooms full of warm, homey comforts, rooms full of secrets and of a deep fear of ghosts. There is the scent of warm, close spaces, of rabbits and serving girls, of household remedies and dried fruit. Two worlds intermingled there. From two opposite poles came the day and the night. One world was the parental home, but actually it was even narrower. In truth, it contained only my parents. On the whole, I knew this world well. Its name was mother and father. It was love and strict rules, education and example. What belonged to this world was gently shining radiance, clarity, and cleanliness. Quiet, friendly conversation, washed hands, clean clothes, good behavior. Morning hymns were sung there, Christmas celebrated. In that world of straight lines and paths leading into the future, there was duty and obligation, bad conscience and confessions, forgiveness and good resolutions, love and respect, wisdom and biblical proverbs. You had to keep this world for your life to be clear and pure, beautiful and harmonious. Meanwhile, the other world was there already, right in the middle of our house and completely different. It smelled different, spoke differently, promised and demanded entirely different things. There were serving girls and traveling tradesmen in the second world, ghost stories and scandalous rumors, a richly colored flood of monstrous, tempting, frightening, mysterious things, like the slaughterhouse and the prison. Alcoholics and bickering women, cows giving birth and horses with broken legs, and stories of burglaries, murders, suicides. All these beautiful, horrible, wild, cruel things existed all around, in the next street over, in the house next door. Policemen and beggars ran around, drunks beat their wives, gaggles of girls poured out of factories after work. Old women could cast a spell on you and make you sick. Bands of robbers were living in the forest, arsonists were being caught by the country police. This powerful second world welled up everywhere. Its scent was everywhere except in our rooms, where mother and father were. And that was good. How wonderful that here, in our home, there was peace and calm and order, duty and conscience, mercy and love. And how wonderful that all the rest existed too. Everything loud and shrill, dark and violent, from which you could still escape to mother in a single bound. The strangest thing was how these two worlds touched each other. How close to each other they were. For example, our maid, Lena. When she sat with her freshly washed hands resting on the apron she had smoothed down her lap, praying by the door of our living room, and joining her bright voice to our song, belonged completely to mother and father, to we who lived in the world of light and truth. The next moment, in the kitchen or in the barn, when she told the story of the little man with no head, or fought with the neighbor women at the butcher shop, she was someone else, and a part of the other world, and was shrouded in mystery. That's how it was with everyone, most of all myself. Of course, I was part of the bright and true world. I was my parents' child, but wherever I turned my eye or ear, the other world was always there, and I lived in the other world too, even though it often felt like I didn't belong there, in the spooky realm of fear and bad conscience. At times, I even liked the forbidden world better, and often my return to the light, as good and necessary as it might be, felt almost like a turn towards something less beautiful, less exciting, more desolate and dreary. Sometimes I knew that my goal in life was to turn into someone like mother and father, so bright and pure, so superior and harmonious, but it was a long, long way to that goal, and along that way you had to sit quietly in school and study and take tests and pass exams, and all the while the path ran right past the other, darker world, or through it, and it was by no means impossible to stay in it, drown in it. There were stories of lost boys, prodigal sons, that this had happened to, and I read them avidly. The return to the father, to what was good, was always such a magnificent liberation in these stories. I was perfectly aware that this was the only right and good and desirable outcome. But still, the part of the story that took place among the lost and evil souls was always much more exciting. And if it were only possible to admit it, it was sometimes actually rather a shame that the lost soul had to repent and be found again. But that was something you didn't say, and didn't even think. It was just there, somehow, just a hunch, or a possibility buried deep, deep down in your feelings. When I imagined the devil, I could see him perfectly well on the street down the hill, in disguise or not, or at the fair, or in a pub, but never with us at home. My sisters were also part of this brightly lit world. I often felt that they were naturally more like mother and father than I was, more well-behaved, more perfect, better. They had their faults and bad habits, but ones that never ran very deep, I felt. Not like with me, where any contact with evil was so painful and difficult, and where the dark world seemed to lie so much closer. Sisters, like parents, were there to take care of and respect, and whenever you fought with them, it was always you that your conscience said was the bad one, the cause of the problem, the one who had to ask for forgiveness, because to offend your sisters was to offend your parents, the benevolent authority figures. There were secrets I could share with the worst delinquents from the street much more readily than with my sisters. On good days, when the air was bright and my conscience was clear, I was often delighted to play with my sisters, to behave well with them and see myself in a good, noble light. That was what life must be like as an angel. That was the highest state we could imagine, and we thought how sweet and wonderful it would be to be angels, wrapped in bright, clear sound and smell like Christmas and happiness. But oh, how rare such good days were. Many times, even when playing a harmless permitted game, I played with too much passion and force for my sisters, which led to accidents or fights, and then, when anger and rage came over me, I was horrible and said and did things whose depravity I could feel, deep and burning, even while I was doing and saying them. Then came dark and bitter hours of regret and remorse, and then the painful moment when I asked for forgiveness, and then, again, beam of bright light, quiet, grateful, harmonious happiness for a few hours or minutes. I was a student in the Latin school, and with the mayor's son and head forester's son in my class. They would come over to my house sometimes. They were wild boys, yet they belonged to the good, unforbidden world. But I also did things with neighborhood boys from the public school, boys we otherwise looked down on. It is with one of them that my story begins. Well, that's it. I have decided I would only read this far. If you're interested in this book, I'll leave the name of the book and the author. It's in the description. You can look it up. And I'll also leave the name of the translator who translated this one in English for you as well, just in case you want to read this translation. And I hope that wasn't too boring. I'm not the best reader, but I really encourage you to pick up this book and read it. It will teach you a lot of things. If you have listened this far, thank you for listening this far. See you soon.